Hello, everybody. Welcome to Way Sauce. What, are you scared of something? I'm Sam. This is my co-host, Brendan.
Hello.
And as you can tell, we're not in the studio. We have a little different setup here. We're in Brendan's backyard.
My backyard.
This is his. Yes, you like our little decorations. Who do we have here?
This is Bertha.
Bertha. Big Bertha.
Bertha, and the rest of them you could name if you'd like.
Yeah, we got Scott. Pretty general. We have Chrysanthemum, the spider. Don't let her come in bed, and she will,
And who could forget about Leviticus the 6th?
God.
That was Tony.
Now we call him Neil Peart. So today we're going to be reading classic horror tales. This is a short story book of a bunch of old tales here. We got ones from Edgar Allan Poe, Bram Stoker, M.R. James. I don't know him, but he sounds cool.
He sounds cool. Mr. James.
Mr. James.
Mr. LeBron James.
That's him. So the text is really small here, so I'm going to be reading to Brendan, and he's going to be
commenting.
He's going to be commenting, and we're going to see how it goes. He's got a little cool shirt on there.
There are so many mosquitoes.
Oh, he's not a... Well, who's a mosquito fan? Oh, I think I already have a bite here.
I have 90,000.
90,000. That's a lot. All right, so right now I'm going to read Dracula's Guest by Bram Stoker, and Brendan's going to do his best to stand still with these bugs, and also if he's frightened.
Ooh. Here we go.
When we started for our drive, the sun was shining brightly on Munich, and the air was full of joyfulness. Nope, joyousness. That's a tough word.
Munich, Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
We should do Oktoberfest one time.
Oh, that would be fun.
Read them these stories.
Oh,
see if they heard of it.
Bring the book. Instead of playing Switch on the plane, just read them the book.
We played Switch on the plane.
You remember that?
I do.
That was so fun.
Yep.
My girlfriend's behind the camera.
She is.
Kaja's behind the camera.
Yep.
One time, me and Sam were flying wherever the fuck we were flying. Nashville. And I brought out my Switch, and this whole group of like firefighters behind us had a Switch too, and we were just like playing each other from like all over the airplane.
30,000 feet in the air. Could you believe it?
It was so sick.
Imagine Bram Stoker.
We
he
kept
wouldn't
losing.
believe it.
We kept losing.
Oh,
they were
awful.
really good.
And then I woke you up for a hole. There was a crazy hole in the ground on the landing thing, and I went, Brendan, get up! And he's like, what? And I go, look at this hole. And he goes, you woke me up for a damn hole? Grumpy old Brendan. We love him,
so
though.
Grumpy when I wake up.
All right,
onward.
Just as we were about to depart, Herr Dulbrick, the maitre d' of the hotel, came downstairs barehanded to the carriage, and after wishing me a pleasant drive, said to the coachman, still holding his hand on the handle of the carriage door, remember, be back by nightfall. The sky looks bright, but there is a shiver in the north wind that there may be a sudden storm.
Ooh.
But I am sure you will not be late.
What time period are we thinking
like
this is in?
Late 1800s.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so no cell phones, no TikTok, no baseball. Maybe baseball.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe not in Transylvania.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably.
But I think Bram Stoker was an Irishman, so.
Probably Quidditch.
Yeah, easily.
Lots of Quidditch.
Drunk Quidditch for sure.
Quidditch back in the day.
Yeah. What else did you do besides play Quidditch and drink? Here, here.
Here, here.
He smiled and added, for you know what night it is. Joan? I don't know what that name is.
Joan of Arcadia.
Joan answered with empathetic, yeah, mein Herr. And touching his hat, drove off quickly.
Oh, shit.
So they have cars. Yeah, he's got a top hat in the car.
Top up.
Top up. When we had cleared the town, I said, after signaling him to stop, tell me, Joan, what is tonight? He crossed himself and answered...
He crossed himself?
He crossed himself and answered laconically.
Laconically? What does that mean?
I don't know this word.
Can you look it up?
While Purgus knocked.
Wait, look it up. Laconically.
L-A-C.
J-Mo.
Oh, pull it up.
Pull it up, J-Mo.
Pull it up. Laconically. Laconically? You gotta go again. Laconically.
Using or involving the use of a minimum of words. Concise to the point of seeming rude or mysterious.
How do you pronounce it? Is there a phonetic? All right, the L word. He says, well, Purgus knocked. This he took out his watch, a great old-fashioned German silver thing as big as a turnip, and looked at it with his eyebrows gathered together and a little impatient shrug of his shoulders, I realized that this was his way of respectfully protesting against the unnecessary delay, and sank back in the carriage, merely motioning him to proceed. He started off rapidly, as to make up for lost time. Every now and then the horses seemed to throw their heads and sniffed the air suspiciously. Shallow and pedantic. On such occasions, I often look around in alarm. The road was pretty bleak, for we were traveling ashore a high, wind-swept plateau. As we drove, I saw a road that looked but little used, which seemed to dip through a little winding valley. It looked so inviting that even at the risk of offending him, I called Joan to stop. And when we pulled up, I told him I would like to drive down the road.
Oh.
He made all sorts of excuses and frequently crossed himself as he spoke.
Go that way.
Not my way. I'm still on the first page. How small the print is. This somewhat piqued my curiosity, so I asked him various questions. He answered fencingly and repeatedly looked at his watch in protest.
Oh, it's on. Okay.
Well, Joan, I want to go down this road. I shall not ask you to come unless you like, but tell me, why do you not like to go?
Yeah.
This is all I ask.
What's wrong?
For answer, he seemed to throw himself off the box. So quickly did it reach the ground.
There's vampires that way.
You know it. Then he stretched out his hand, appealing to me, and implored me not to go. There was just enough English mixed with the German for me to understand the drift of his talk.
No.
He seemed almost just about to tell me something, the very idea which evidently frightened him, but each time he pulled himself up, saying as he crossed himself, "Well past Nacht."
Well past night?
I don't know. Could be. Walpurgis Nacht. It's in German.
Nacht is night, for sure.
Oh, and Walpurgis.
Purgatory?
Ooh, or walrus. I tried to argue with him.
You smart.
I'm all right. I tried to argue with him, but it was very difficult to argue with a man when I didn't know his language. So they talking to each other, speaking different languages. It was a crazy time. If only they do lingo.
They don't.
The advantage certainly rested with him, for although he began to speak in English of a very crude and broken kind, he always got excited and broke into his native tongue. And every time he did, he looked at his watch.
He's always looking at his watch.
Always. Then the horses became restless and sniffed at the air again. At this, he grew very pale, looking around in a frightened way. He jumped suddenly forward, took them by the bridles, and led them on some 20 feet. I followed, and asked why he had done this. For answer, he crossed himself, pointed to the spot we left, and drew his carriage in the direction of the other road, indicating a cross, and said, first in German, then in English, "Buried him what killed themselves."
No.
I remembered the old custom of burying suicides at crossroads. Ah, I see. A suicide. How interesting. This is what he read. But for the life of me, I could not make out why the horses were frightened. Whilst we were talking, we heard a sort of sound between a yelp and a bark. It was far away, but the horses got very restless, and it took Joan all his time to quiet them. He was pale and said, "It sounds like a wolf, but there are no wolves around here." No, I said, questioning him. Isn't it long since the wolves were so near the city? Long, long, he answered, in the spring and the summer. But with the snow, the wolves have not been here so long. Whilst he'd been petting the horses and trying to calm them down, dark clouds drifted rapidly across the sky.
So, do you have a hunch that maybe there's some vampires in the woods?
Something going on.
Something going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the horses, they're animals and they can sense. Is that true?
That is very true.
Yeah.
A lot of animals
What do you
have
say?
heightened senses. They're shy.
Yeah.
Camera
No,
shy.
they know.
They were talking earlier.
The sunshine passed away, and a breath of cold wind seemed to drift past us. It was only a breath, however, and more in the nature of a warning than in fact, for the sun came out brightly again. Joan looked under his lifted hand at the horizon and said, "The storm of the snow, he comes before a long time." Then he looked at his watch again and straightforwardly holding his reins firmly, for the horses were still pawing the ground restlessly and shaking their heads.
It's like, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here.
We got to get out of this bitch. He climbed to his box as the time had come for proceeding on his journey.
These blocks.
I felt a little abstinent and did not know once how to get in the carriage. "Tell me," I said, "about this place where the road leads." And I pointed down. Again he crossed himself, mumbled a prayer before he answered, "It is unholy." "What is unholy?" I required.
I was just going to say that.
"The village."
Huh.
"Then there is a village." No. No one lived there for hundreds of years." My curiosity was piqued. "But you said there was a village." "There was." "Where is it now?" Whereupon he burst onto a long story in German and in English, so mixed up that I could not quite understand exactly what he said. But roughly, I gathered that long ago, hundreds of years, men had died there and been buried in graves.
Died in graves.
Possible vampires. My wife left me. Hundreds of years men had died there and buried in their graves, and sounds were heard under the clay. And when the graves were opened, men and women were found rosy with life, and their mouths red with blood, and so in haste to save their lives, aye, and their souls. And there he crossed himself. Those who were there left fled away to other places where the living lived and the dead were dead, and not something. He was evidently afraid to speak the last words. As he proceeded with his narration, he grew more and more excited. It seemed as if his imagination had got a hold of him, and he ended with a perfect paroxysm of fear, white face, perspiring, trembling, and looking around him, as if expecting that some dreadful presence would not manifest itself there in the bright sunshine of the open plain. Finally, in an agony of desperation, he cried, "Walpurgis knocked," and pointed to the carriage for me to get in. All my English blood rose at this, and standing back I said, "You're afraid, Joan. You are afraid. Go home. I shall return alone. The walk will do me some good." The carriage door was open. I took from the seat my oak walking stick, which I always carry around the holiday excursions.
Of course.
I can't go anywhere without it.
I never leave the house without my oak
walking stick.
Oak walking stick.
Oak walking stick.
Oak walking stick.
"Go home, Joan. Walpurgis knocked. Doesn't concern Englishmen." Okay. Have fun.
So he's going on a walk now.
Yeah. He's like, get in the car. He's like, "No." And he's going, "Walpurgis knock." You gibberish. The walk will do me some good.
And we're going to assume that Purgus knock means like bad night, maybe? I'm going to say that.
Okay, yeah.
Because
it's definitely
purgatory something.
Maybe. Or like Walpurgis could mean like something is there in the night.
Mm-hmm.
Like only things come at night. Dracula, wolves.
Mm-hmm.
Her.
Girl filmer.
J-Mo, pull it up. The horses were now more restive than ever, and Joan was trying to hold them in, while excitingly imploring me not to do anything so foolish. I pitied the poor fellow. He was deeply in earnest. But all the same, I could not help laughing. His English was quite gone now. In his anxiety, he forgot that his only means of making me understand was to talk my language, so he jabbered away in his native German.
"Why are you talking my language? Are you talking my language?" Is that Drake?
SZA? I don't know. It began to be a little tedious. After giving the direction home, I turned down the road into the valley. With a despairing gesture, Joan turned his horses toward Munich. I leaned on my stick and looked after him. He went slowly across the road for a while, then there came over the crest of a hill a man, tall and thin.
Oh, shit.
I could see so much in the distance.
So the guy walking named Joan? Right?
Yeah. Where he drew the horses, they began to jump and kick about.
Wait, but
scream with terror.
He's currently walking, right?
Mm.
And he is now seeing
either another man or it's the same.
Or a silhouette or something.
For the road for a while, then came over the crest of a hill a man tall and thin, so he encountered somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I could see so much in the distance. Where he drew near the horses, they began to jump and kick about. Then the scream with terror. Joan could not hold them in. They bolted down the road, running away madly. I watched them out of sight, then looked for the stranger, but I found that he too was gone. With a light heart, I turned down the side of the road through the deepening valley to which Joan had objected. There was not the slightest reason that I could see for his objection, and I, dare I say, trampled for a couple hours without thinking of time or distance, and certainly without seeing a person or a house. So he's just walking.
Yeah.
Time's going by, he walking.
And I guess it's nighttime.
Yeah.
And back then, how many lights are there? It's probably
2.
dark as dick.
Tesla's still in the... He's figuring it out.
He's trying.
He ain't introduced it yet.
He's trying his best.
Edison's like, I'm going to steal it. I'm going to steal it.
Is that true?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Edison was the businessman. Tesla was the genius.
Yeah.
And he promised him money, I think, didn't pay him. I don't know. Tesla died poor. Apparently there's a quote where somebody asked Albert Einstein, what's it like being the smartest man ever? And he said, I don't know, ask Tesla.
Oh, shit.
That's dope. I was there, I heard it. Okay. With a light heart, I turned down the road to the deepening valley to which Joan... Fuck you! had objected. I sat down to rest myself and began to look around. It struck me that it was considerably colder than it had been at the commencement of my walk. A sort of sighing sound seemed to be around me, with now and then high overhead a sort of muffled roar. It's getting cold. What does cold mean?
Well, they did say something about snow, right?
Right, but when it gets cold,
There's ghosties around?
they're ghosties. Remember The Conjuring?
Yeah, of
Meat
course.
and cold.
Meat and cold. The smell of
Smells
meat
like meat everywhere.
keeps getting cold. People getting possessed.
Crazy.
Crazy.
Looking upwards, I noticed the great thick clouds were drifting rapidly across the sky from north to south at a great height. There were signs of coming storm and some lofty stratum of the air. I was a little chilly, and thinking it was the sitting still after the exercise of walking, I resumed my journey. The ground I passed over was now more picturesque. There were no striking objects that the eye might not single out, but in all there was a charm of beauty. I took a little heed of time, and it was only when the deepening twilight forced itself upon me that I began to think about how I should find my way home. The brightness of the day had gone, the air was cold, and the drifting clouds high overhead were more marked. They were accompanied by a sort of faraway rushing sound, through which seemed to come at intervals that mysterious cry which the driver had said come for a wolf. For a while I hesitated. I had said I would see the deserted village, so I went on.
That's always been his goal, to go see this village?
I think so.
Okay.
And presently come on a wide stretch of open country, shut in by hills all around. Their sides were covered with trees, which spread down the plain, dotting in clumps. The gentler slopes and hollows, which showed here and there. I followed with my eye the winding of the road, and saw that it curved close to one of the densest and most clumps that was lost behind it. As I looked, there came a cold shiver in the air, and the snow began to fall.
Oh.
I thought of the miles and miles of bleak country I'd passed, and then I hurried on to seek shelter in the woods in front. Darker and darker grew the sky, and faster and heavier fell the snow, till the earth before and around me was a glistening white carpet. The further edge where we at? Love my place.
Where we at, girl?
Shit small. Live there. Yeah. The road was here but crude, and when on the level its boundaries were not so marked. And when it passed through the cuttings, and in a little while I found that I must have been strayed from it, for I missed the underfoot, the hard surface, and my feet sank deeper in the grass and moss. Then the wind grew stronger, and blew with the ever-increasing force, till I was in fain to run before it. The air became icy cold, and in spite of my exercise I began to suffer. The snow was now falling so thickly and whirling around me in such rapid eddies that I could hardly keep my eyes open.
This is the storm.
Yeah,
It's
he's
going
struggling.
nuts. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's
Damn.
showing him all it's got.
In Munich.
He done.
First off, I didn't know they had vampires in Munich.
Well, we don't know.
I thought they were only in Transylvania. That's it.
Apparently they're
And
everywhere.
that one place in Rhode Island. It was on that, what's that scary road called?
Sleepy or Exeter.
Exeter. Remember we read that story? Way back? They thought there were vampires taking over?
I think there was like a girl hanging that people would see from the trees because you literally, it's just a narrow road and it's just woods on each side. Dude, I've done that drive at night. It's like 40 miles an hour. I'd go like 60. I'm like, I'm so scared. It's so scary.
Love it. Shout out Drew.
Shout out Drew. Drew Bohoviak.
Shout out
you
Drew.
out, bro. I was soon amongst the shelter of the trees, and there, in comparative silence, I could hear the rush of the wind high overhead. Presently, the blackness of the storm had become merged in the darkness of the night. Sounds scary. By and by, the storm seemed to be passing away. It now only come in fierce puffs or blasts. At such moments, the weird sound of the wolf appeared to be echoed by so many similar sounds around me. Now and again, through the black mass of drifting cloud, came a straggling ray of moonlight, which lit up the expanse and showed me that I was at the edge of a dense mass of cypress and yew trees. As the snow had ceased to fall, I walked out from under the shelter and began to investigate more closely. If you're ever thinking about writing, that's how you describe something.
That's how you do it.
That's how you describe something.
I don't know. Have those words sometimes. I was like,
me either. As I skirted the edge of the copse, I found that a low wall encircled it, and following this, I presently found an opening. Here the cypresses formed an alley leading up to a square mass of some kind of building. Just as I caught sight of this, however, the drifting clouds obscured the moon, and I passed up the path in darkness. The wind must have grown colder, for I felt myself shiver as I walked, but there was a hope of shelter, and I groped my way blindly on. I stopped, for there was a sudden stillness. The storm had passed, and perhaps in sympathy with the nature's silence, my heart seemed to cease to beat. But this was only momentarily, for suddenly the moonlight broke through the clouds, showing me that I was still in a graveyard. Showing me that I was in a graveyard, and that the square object before me was a great massive tomb of marble.
oh shoot.
As white as snow that lay on and all around it. With the moonlight, there came a fierce sigh of storm, which appeared to resume its course with a long, long howl, as of many dogs or wolves. I was awed and shocked and felt the cold precipitately grow upon me till it seemed to grip me by the heart. Then while the flood of moonlight still fell on the marble tomb, the storm gave further evidence of renewing, as though it was returning on its track. Impelled by some sort of fascination, I approached the I don't know that word.
What is it?
Sepulchre.
Sepulska?
Sepulchre. I approached the Sepulchre to see what it was and why such a thing stood alone in its place. I walked around it and read over the Doric door in German, Countess Daligen of Gratz in Styria, sought and found death, 1801. Over the top of the tomb, seemingly driven through the solid marble, for the structure was composed of a few vast blocks of stone.
1801?
That early.
Damn. But, yeah, damn.
On the top of the tomb, seemingly driven through the solid marble, for the structure was composed of a few vast blocks of stone, was a great iron spike or stake. On going to the back, I saw, graven in great Russian letters, "The dead travel fast." There was something so weird and uncanny about the whole thing that it gave me a turn and made me feel quite faint. I began to wish for the first time that I had taken Joan's advice. Duh.
Maybe I've gotten in the carriage.
Maybe he was right.
Straight to
he was
Munich.
on something. A thought struck me, which came under almost mysterious circumstances with a terrible shock. This was Walpurgis Night.
Yep.
Walpurgis Night, when, according to the belief of millions of people, the devil was abroad. When the graves were open and the dead came forth and walked. When all things evil of earth and air and water held reveal. This very place the driver had specifically shunned. This was the depopulated village of centuries ago.
Oh, so
This was
he's
where the
reached
suicide lay, and this was the place where I was alone, unmaimed, shivering with a cold and shroud of snow, with a wild storm gathering upon me. It took all my philosophy, all the religion I had been taught, all my courage not to collapse in paroxysm of fright. And now a perfect tornado burst upon me. The ground shook as though thousands of horses thundered across it, and this time the storm bore on its icy wings, not snow, but great hailstones which drove with such violence that they might have come from the thongs of Balearic slingers, hailstones that beat down leaf and branch and made the shelter of the cypresses of no more avail that though their stems were standing corn. At the first I had rushed to the nearest tree, but I was soon fain to leave it and seek the only spot that seemed to afford refuge, the deep Doric doorway of the marble tomb. Damn.
How long is this?
Oof. All right, 3 more pages, but that's like 10.
Oh,
No,
okay.
there's only 3 more pages, but this is like
No, we're good.
times like 3.
Yeah.
Okay. There, crouching against the massive bronze door, I gained a certain amount of protection from the beating of hailstones, for now they only drove against me as they ricocheted from the ground and against of the marble, the side of the marble. As I leaned against the door, it moved slightly and opened inwards. The shelter of even a tomb was welcome in that pitiless tempest, and I was about to enter it, where there came a flash of forked lightning that lit up the whole expanse of the heavens. In the instant, as I am a living man, I saw, as my eyes were turned around into the darkness of a tomb, a beautiful woman with rounded cheeks
Oh, shit.
and red lips, seemingly sleeping on a bier.
On a beer?
B-I-E-R. She was on a Heineken. As the thunder broke overhead, I was grasped as by the hand of a giant and hurled into the storm. The whole thing was so sudden that before I could realize the shock, moral as well as physical, I found the hailstones beating me down. At the same time, I had a strange, dominating feeling that I was not alone. I looked towards the tomb. Just then, there came another blinding flash, which seemed to strike the iron stake that surmounted to the tomb and to pour through the earth, blasting and crumbling the marble as in a burst of flame. The dead woman rose from a moment of agony,
Oh, shit.
while she was lapped in the flame, and her bitter scream of pain was drowned in the thunder crash. The last thing I heard was this mingling of a dreadful sound, and again I was seized in the giant gasp and dragged away. While the hailstones beat on me, then the air seemed reverberant, and the howling of the wolves. The last sight I remember was a vague, white moving mass, as if all the graves around me had sounded out all the phantoms of their sheeted dead, and that they were closing in on me through the white cloudiness of the driving hail. Gradually there came a sort of vague beginning of consciousness. Then a sense of weariness was dreadful. For a time I remember nothing, but slowly my senses returned. My feet seemed positively racked with pain, yet I could not move them. They seemed to be numbed. There was an icy feeling at the back of my neck and all down my spine,
Boy.
and my ears, like my feet, were dead.
Ew.
The back of my neck... Oh, I read that. Yet I was in torment. But there was in my breast a sense of warmth, which was, by comparison, delicious. It was as a nightmare, a physical nightmare, if one may use such an expression, for some heavy weight on my chest made it difficult for me to breathe. Shout out Giles Corey.
Oh, shit.
Shout out Giles Corey.
He's getting squished.
Oh, yeah.
Like Giles Corey.
I don't know if he's getting switched, but it's hard for him to breathe. There's a weight on his chest.
Okay.
More weight, says Giles. The period of semi-lethargy seemed to remain a long time, as it faded away as I must have slept or swooned. Then came a sort of loathing, like the first stage of seasickness, and a wild desire to be free from something. I knew not what. A vast stillness enveloped me, as though all the world were asleep or dead, only broken by the low painting of some animal close to me. I felt a warm rasping at my throat. Then came a consciousness of the awful truth, which chilled me to the heart and sent the blood surging up through my brain. Some great animal was lying on me and now licking my throat.
Ew.
I feared to stir. For some instance of prudence bade me lie still.
But the brute seemed to realize that there was now some change in me, for it has raised its head. Through my eyelashes I saw above me 2 great flaming eyes of a gigantic wolf. Its sharp white teeth gleamed in the gaping red mouth, and I could feel its hot breath, fierce and acrid, upon me. For another spell of time I remembered no more. Then I became conscious of a low growl, followed by a yelp, renewed again and again. Then, seemingly very far away, I heard a howla, howla. As many voices calling in unison.
Fadoo, fadoo, fadoo.
Fadoo, fadoo. As many voices calling in unison. Cautiously, I raised my head and looked in the direction whence the sound came, but the cemetery blocked my view. The wolf still continued to yelp in a strange way, and a red glare began to move around the grove of cypresses, as though following the sound. As the voices drew closer, the wolf yelped faster and louder. I feared to make either a sound or motion. Never came the red glow. Nearer came the red glow over the white pale. These words are tough. Nearer came the red glow over the white pall which stretched into the darkness around me. Then all at once, from beyond the trees, there came a troop of horsemen bearing torches. The wolf rose from my breast and made for the cemetery. I saw one of the horsemen raise his carbine and take aim. A companion knocked upon his arm, and I heard the ball whiz over my head. He evidently taken my body for that of the wolf. Another sighted the animal as it slunk away, and shot followed. Then, at a gallop, the troop rode forward, some towards me, others followed the wolf as it disappeared amongst the snow-clad cypresses. As they drew nearer and I tried to move, but was powerless, although I could see and hear all that went around me. 2 or 3 of the soldiers jumped from their horses and knelt beside me. One of them raised my head and placed his hand over my heart. "Good news, comrades," he cried. "His heart still beats." Then some brandy was poured down my throat. It put vigor into me, and I was able to open my eyes and finally look around. Lights and shadows were moving amongst the trees, and I heard men call to one another. They drew together, uttering frightened exclamations, and the lights flashed as the others came pouring out of the cemetery like men possessed. When the further one came close to us, those who were around me asked them eagerly, "Well, have you found him?" The reply rang out hurriedly, "No, no, come away, quick, quick. This is no place to stay, and on this of all nights."
What was this? Was the question asked in all the manner of the keys. The answer came variously, and all indefinitely, as though the men were moved by some common impulse to speak, yet were restrained by some common fear from giving their thoughts. It indeed, gibbered one, whose wits had plainly given out of a moment. "A wolf, and yet not a wolf," another put in shruggedly. "No use trying for him without the sacred bullet," a third remarked in a more ordinary manner. "Serve us right for coming out on this night. Truly we have earned our 1,000 marks," were the ejaculation of the fourth. These terms. "There was blood on the broken marble," again said after a pause. "The lightning never brought that there. And for him, is he safe? Look at his throat. See, comrades, the wolf has been lying on him and keeping his blood warm." The officer looked at my throat and replied, "He is all right. The skin is not pierced." "What does it all mean?" We should never have found him, but the yelping of the wolf." "What became of it?" asked the man who was holding up my head and who had seemed the least panic-stricken of the party, for his hands were steady and without tremor. On his sleeve was the chevron of a petty officer. "It went to its home," answered the man, whose long face was paled and who accidentally shook with terror as he glanced around him fearfully. "There are graves enough there in which it may lie. Come, comrades, come quickly. Let us leave this cursed spot." The officer raised me to a sitting posture, as he uttered a word of command. Then several men placed me upon a horse. He sprang to the saddle behind me, took me into his arms, gave me the word of advice, and turning our faces away from the cypresses, we rode away in swift military order. and yet my tongue refused its office, and I was perforce silent. For I was falling asleep. For the next thing I remember, I was finding myself standing up, supported by a soldier on each side of me. It was almost broad daylight, and to the north a red streak of sunlight was reflected, like a path of blood over the waste of snow.
I had no idea what you were doing at first.
You never know.
You look like you were smiling. You were just like, my favorite.
I love this shit. Where am I at? Spider dick. The officer was telling the men to say nothing of what they had seen, except they had found an English stranger guarded by a large dog. Dog? That was no dog, cut in the man who exhibited such fear. I think I know a wolf when I see one. The young officer answered calmly. I said a dog. Dog? Reiterated the other ironically. It was evident that his courage was rising within the sun, and pointing to me, he said, Look at his throat. Is that a work of a dog, master? Instinctively, I raised my hand to my throat. As I touched and I cried out in pain.
Oh.
Oh.
Is it going to be like 2 holes?
The men crowded round to look, some stooping down from their sadness. Nope. The men crowded round to look, some stooping down from their saddles, and again there came the calm voice of the young officer. A dog, as I said. If aught else were said, we should only be laughed at. I was then mounted behind a trooper, and we rode on into the suburbs of Munich. Here we came across a stray carriage, into which I was lifted, and it was driven off to the quarter Saisons. The young officer accompanying me, whilst a trooper followed with his horse, and the others rode off to the barracks. When we arrived, Delbruck rushed so quickly down the steps to meet me that it was apparent he had been watching within. Taking me by both hands, he salaciously led me in. The officer saluted me and turned to withdraw when I recognized his purpose and insisted that he should come to my room. Over a glass of wine, I warmly thanked him and his brave comrades for saving me. He replied simply that he was more glad that the Herr Delbruck had taken its first steps to make all the searching party pleased, at which ambiguous utterance the maitre d' smiled, while the officer pleaded duty and withdrew. But Herr Delbruck, I required, how and why was all that soldiers... But Herr Delbruck, I inquired, how and why was it that the soldiers searched for me? He shrugged his shoulders, as if in depreciation of his own deed, as he replied, I was so fortunate to obtain leave from the commander of the regiment which I served, to ask for volunteers. But how do I know I was lost? But how did you know I was lost? I asked. The driver came hither with the remains of his carriage, which had been upset when the horses ran away.
Oh, shit.
But surely you would not send a search party of soldiers merely on this account. Oh, no, he answered. But even before the coachman arrived, I had this telegram from the bowyer whose guest you are. And he took from his pocket a telegram which he handed me, and I read, Bistritz. Be careful of my guest. His safety is most precious to me. Should aught happen to him, or if he be missed, spare nothing to find him, ensure his safety. He is English, and therefore adventurous. There are often dangers from snow and wolves at night. Lose not a moment if you suspect harm to him. I answer your zeal with my fortune. Dracula.
Damn.
As I held the telegram in my hand, the room seemed to whirl around me, and if the attentive maitre d' had not caught me, I think I should have fallen. But there was something so strange in all this, so weird and impossible to imagine, that there grew on me a sense of being in some way that the sport of opposite forces, the mere vague idea, and which seemed, in a way, to paralyze me. I was certainly under some form of mysterious protection. From a distant country had come, and in the very nick of time, a message took me out of the danger of a snow sleep and the jaws of a wolf.
So that note was from
Dracula.
Dracula.
So Dracula, he was Dracula's guest.
Yeah.
And he telegrammed the, leader of the army saying, this man is Englishman, he is my guest. Make sure you take care of him because Englishmen are very adventurous. So he predicted that he would do that. So they sent the search party out for him. He was like, why would you send the search party out on this like horrible night?
Yeah.
He was like, well, I got this letter. And when I saw that the coachman came back without you, I knew we had to go.
Was he always coming from Dracula?
This dude?
Yeah. He was always his guest?
I guess. I mean, the book just starts out with them
So
riding.
Huh.
The book is called, the story is Dracula's Guest
Oh, okay.
by Bram Stoker.
So maybe he just wanted to like go out in Munich and explore, and
I guess
then
so.
a wolf came along?
Right. Well, and like the snow and like, I guess the graves and a woman. So he saw a bunch of shit. And I guess Walpurgis Nacht is a night that he said that like all hell breaks loose pretty much. Very interesting.
Yeah. Or maybe Dracula really wanted him to be saved so that he could just have his way with him. Drain him of his blood.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the wolves were there. I bet Dracula's wolves are like his pets and like his servants. So they were probably like, I guess, saving him from the evil of the night, maybe. The wolves, they were like licking his scars and like, maybe that's why he was on top of him.
Wild stuff.
That is crazy. A lot of tough words in that one. A lot of tough words. But I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was cool. I got a vivid image in my head. So it was good.
It's very picturesque, and like the whole time I was just picturing like him just walking through, like I could just hear like.
Yeah, I was picturing like a dirt road, and then there was like these random woods, and then I kept picturing him
Cemetery.
in like a mausoleum, and like there was like a dead woman like that dragged him into the mausoleum, and then all of a sudden there's a wolf like on him. I don't know. For some reason my mind went there.
Oh, it's cool. It makes you like be imaginative. You know what when it said the woman came out, I thought of the witch.
Oh, okay.
Like
okay.
the woman seducing him.
Yeah. Oh my god.
So, but yeah, this like I just see him like trekking through snow and like literally probably walking miles, and then he's probably like hallucinating and like all this shit was going down, the storm, and like he had no water or food, and yeah. So that was crazy. I enjoyed it though.
Yeah, that was good.
It was cool. I don't know how people are narrators for audiobooks.
Yeah.
That took a lot out of me.
Yeah, and that was short.
like 6 pages, but honestly, like
That's
times
wild.
2 because the print. Look at the print.
Look at that. Damn.
Why don't you read once in a while?
All right, maybe next time I'll read one.
That'll be cool.
This is cool inside cover though.
Oh, it's sick. Yeah,
That's nice.
really cool book. All right, guys, that was Dracula's Guest from Classic Horror Tales. You can get this at Barnes & Noble and maybe in Transylvania.
Well, Munich.
Well, them too. Apparently they got werewolves too. Or not werewolves, vampires. I don't know. They're all the
Vampire
same.
wolves.
That'd be some movie.
Wolves. Sorry,
Or-
that's a stretch.
Or vampires.
Oh, vampires.
All right, well, we hope you enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the story, if we should do others, or if we should never do that again and go back to reviewing animated horror stories and movies. All right, Way Sauce, thanks for watching.
Peace out, San Diego.